Hey! Time for another wild story from our channel. Think your week's rough? Picture arguing with your wife, losing your dog, and waking up to a humiliating revenge video before breakfast. Today's tale proves that flying off the handle rarely solves anything. Sometimes it just shatters everything. I'm a 28-year-old guy married to Diana, 27, for 2 years, and right now our marriage is heading for a cliff. I should have known better, but consider this a cautionary tale. You can't assume red flags will disappear. If you ignore them hoping someone will change, you'll end up in my kind of mess. Diana has always had a short fuse. Her sisters and mom say it was worse when she was a teen, and I foolishly hoped it would mellow with time. Outside of that temper, she seemed perfect for me. The flare-ups happened every few months, so I thought it was a compromise worth making. Don't tear me apart for that. I've learned my lesson. We agreed to wait on kids until we were more financially stable, and the truth is we weren't anywhere close. Rent felt heavy each month. I was juggling retail work and trade school on the side, trying to climb out of our situation. Still, on impulse we adopted a golden retriever, convinced we could tighten our budget and make it work. For the first 3 months we managed fine, but then things got tight again. Diana slipped back into her Starbucks habit. She claimed it was once a week, but the receipts told a different story, and it felt like 2 or 3 visits a week. I pushed her to stop, and she scaled it back a bit after I nagged, so I let it slide and picked up extra overtime to cover the shortfall. Looking back, I gave too much leeway. The real trouble began when she lost her job after an angry outburst at work that got her fired on the spot. She applied for jobs diligently for 2 weeks, and I helped where I could, but momentum faded after that. She landed a part-time gig that barely covered anything, and our budget situation became grim, especially with dog expenses piled on. I ran the numbers and realized we could barely survive on my income if we cut every luxury, and that meant we probably couldn't keep Buster. I raised the idea of rehoming him as a practical choice for our survival, and she exploded. I'd said it bluntly, yes, but it wasn't a light topic to me either. I loved that dog. I'd been the one who excitedly brought Buster into our lives and had handled most of his care. Still, without help from family nearby, we had few options. I asked her to step up the job hunt so we could keep the dog, and for a while she did, but nothing viable came through. After weeks of slim prospects, I told her I was going to find a new family for Buster whether she liked it or not. It was a survival move. She said she'd never forgive me. I felt awful through the whole process. I hated even thinking about it. I put together an ad and worked with a family to rehome him, keeping her informed so it wouldn't be sprung on her. When the day came and I told her Buster was gone, she refused to believe it. She checked the car, saw he wasn't there, and lost her mind. She called me every name and shook with rage. This was one of those full-blown temper episodes I'd feared. But what happened next is what ruined everything. She slammed on some clothes and left within 5 minutes, not bothering to tell me where she was going. I assumed she needed air, but hour after hour passed and she didn't come back. Then she sent me a message that changed everything. A video, a naked revenge clip of her with another man, clearly intended to hurt me for rehoming Buster. Describing what I felt is hard. It was like someone set my chest on fire. I couldn't fathom she'd gone out to cheat, much less filmed it to make sure I knew. It crushed me because rehoming the dog had hurt me too. This wasn't a one-sided wound. Her stunt felt designed to make me suffer. I wanted her to come home that night so I could unleash everything I felt, but I also feared what her rage might lead to, and she didn't return. I didn't sleep. At first I'd watched a few seconds, stopped, then, out of that awful curiosity, watched the whole clip before I forced myself to stop. It wasn't a joke. I was terrified of what I might do, but when she finally walked back in the next morning I managed to control myself. I yelled the moment she stepped inside and demanded to know why she'd done it. Instead of matching my anger, she seemed frightened, standing by the door like she might bolt. She whispered, "I'm sorry," barely audible, and the sound made something inside me shift. It felt like she'd sobered up and finally seen the wreckage she'd created. I ranted about the pain and how it hadn't been easy for me to rehome Buster, but she acted like it was trivial. I told her we'd picked the wrong time for a dog and that rehoming him wasn't personal but necessary, especially given our finances. She snapped that I was punishing her for losing her job, and I tried to explain the math, that a surprise vet visit could bankrupt us and that I'd shouldered most of Buster's costs even when she worked. I asked how she expected us to survive if she didn't cut luxuries she hadn't stopped using, and she answered with anger and tears. It was clear she'd crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I told her then that we couldn't have Buster if we were going to keep sliding toward eviction, and I meant it. She begged and pleaded, but she'd already chosen to make a public spectacle out of our pain, and that decision didn't vanish with apologies. I don't want to hear judgments. I've already punished myself enough. But I learned the hard way that some impulses and red flags don't fade. I knew I'd have to live with the consequences of both of our choices, and with Diana's revenge video burned into my memory, My trust was shattered, especially after we dropped to only one full. It felt like the last straw. Our falling apart wasn't some mutual drift this time. It was all on her. She looked like she wanted to speak, to shove in an excuse, but I gave her no opening. I told her I was filing for divorce, told her that the casual way she betrayed me suggested it wasn't the first time, and I ignored whatever denials she tried to offer. I told her she could have a dog when she was single, even if it bankrupted her, and watched her grow more defensive as I pressed the point. She insisted she tried to delete the video after sending it but missed the window, and I said the obvious. Instead of trying to erase what she'd done, she could have simply not done it. I felt her temper beginning to flare, so I cooled off. There was no point stoking it because, in my mind, we were finished. I told her I'd be moving out since I didn't want to keep the place and that she could sort the rent after I left. She started begging me to reconsider, but I couldn't take it as anything but the dawning panic of someone who only had a part-time job and was about to be in real trouble financially. I packed what I could, my truck arrived, and I left. Now I'm hunting for a cheaper place so my single rent will be manageable. I hired a low-cost divorce lawyer, had Diana served, and hoped we could split things amicably. We're not rich, so there wasn't much to fight over anyway. Anyone who thinks her decision, to cheat as revenge for rehoming a dog and send a video, was anything but extreme is kidding themselves. Escalating a dispute about a pet into that level of betrayal isn't someone you can live with. Getting away was the right move. Update. Months later, the divorce is final. There wasn't much to divide beyond furniture and a few personal items, and I focused on the few things I really wanted. Thankfully, she didn't complicate negotiations, and I don't have to pay alimony even though she initially proposed it. She chose to stay in the apartment, a risky choice given her finances, and the split was fair and final. Her car, personal items, a portion of savings, and the rest to me. The emptiness of ending a short marriage stung. I'm young, and being divorced so quickly felt stupid and hurtful. In a petty, irrational moment, I wanted to make her feel a fraction of what I'd felt, so I decided to mirror her betrayal. I went to the store where she used to work, pretended I wasn't there to cause trouble, and flirted with a woman Diana had always said she didn't like. Within a week I was at that woman's apartment. We hooked up, and I asked if I could record a video from behind. I told her why, and she agreed, partly because she disliked Diana too. I sent that clip to Diana as soon as I got home, and even though it showed only a silhouette, she recognized the tattoo on the back of the woman's neck and lost it. She had no idea where I lived, so all she could do was scream from afar. I told her it was a taste of what she'd put me through, made the point that we weren't even a couple anymore, and then let her outrage play out. She called, accused me of immaturity and pettiness, and I listened long enough to hang up. Then I blocked her on everything because I didn't want another revenge video arriving in my inbox. Now, after all the criticism in the original thread about other rehoming choices, I can say this: rehoming Buster was the choice that made sense to me at the time, and she offered no workable alternative. Buster is doing great with his new family, and I plan to visit him soon. The lesson I took away is blunt. Be smarter financially and don't pretend red flags will vanish. If someone escalates a disagreement into deliberate, public betrayal, believe them and don't compromise with chaos. In the end, what exploded between us showed she wasn't the right person for me, and that's the hard truth I've learned. Thank you for listening to the story. If you've stuck with it, please like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next.